Chapter 7 Peppermint. As soon as Adrienne and Marinette got back to the bakery, she set to work on making the dress. She figured if she really knuckled down on it, she could most likely get it made in about 4 to 5 hours, providing she didn't get herself too distracted. With Adrienne being in the room, however, that was easier said than done. "Can I help with anything?" he asked, looking at all the lace and buttons in her sewing box. "I'm not sure there's really much you could do to help," Marinette replied, laying out the pattern she had designed earlier. Adrienne picked up her sketchbook and looked at the design. It was just as well you already had a dress thought out beforehand. "Well, I usually make a new dress for myself for Christmas," she replied, pinning the pattern onto the fabric. "I guess it's a little tradition I have. I had planned to make this in pink, but I guess peppermint will be just as nice." Adrienne looked at her thoughtfully. "Is that what you called it? Peppermint?" he asked, picking up an offcut from where she had started cutting off the pattern. "Yeah, well, it's a bit more green than aqua, but not as dark as grass or an emerald. I mean, when someone says peppermint to me, I think of a candy cane. But candy canes don't look much like peppermint because they are usually red and white, not green and white. Or peppermint and white, I should say." Adrienne didn't say anything as Marinette prattled on happily while finishing the cutting of her pattern. It wasn't until she was ready to pin the pieces together she realized he had been quiet. She knew she was waffling on out of nerves because of that near kiss. Well, at least she thought it was a near kiss at the ice rink. Now she was worried, though, that she had said something to upset him as he looked at the scrap fabric in his hand. Marinette put her pins down and placed a hand on his, causing him to look up at her. "Adrienne, are you alright?" He gave her a sad smile. "Yeah, I just remembered something, that's all." "Was it something I said?" "No," he reassured her, holding her hand between his. "It was the peppermint. It reminded me of my mother." Marinette looked at him curiously. "How? Did she like peppermint?" "Kind of," he replied, thinking back. "I don't know if it was because she grew up in England, but every Christmas she would buy those hard-boiled lollies. You know, the white ones with the green and red stripes on them? I'm pretty sure Felix mentioned that Aunt Amelie gets them too. I remember when I hugged her, she would smell of peppermint." He put down the bits of fabric and gave her a soft smile. "What about you? What reminds you of Christmas?" Marinette thought for a moment as she pinned the fabric. "Hot chocolate, I guess," she said with a small smile. "There's something comforting about the smell of melted chocolate." For the next little while, they chatted about their favorite Christmas things. Sabine brought their dinner up on trays, knowing that once Marinette gets into a creative zone, she doesn't like to leave her room. As they finished their dinner, the conversation shifted to school and what they might do after. "Are you going to apply for EMSOD?" Adrienne asked, taking her tray and making space for her to continue her work. "Yeah, I mean, it is the place to go if you want to be anyone in the fashion industry. It's something I've dreamed of for years. I've been putting together my portfolio and I'm happy with what I have so far," she said confidently. "What about you? Have you thought about what you want to do?" "I've been trying to," he said, lounging back on her chase and taking out his hair tie so he could redo it. "At first, I thought I could model for another company, but honestly, I'm not sure I really want to. Modeling wasn't ever really a choice. It was just something I did because my father wanted me to." "What about university? Is there something you might like to study?" Adrienne finished tying his hair back into a loose bun. "Felix suggested that too. He's planning on studying at Cambridge and thought maybe I should join him there and live with him and Aunt Amelie." Marinette stopped what she was doing. "Do you want to do that?" "I don't know. I told him I would think about it." Marinette didn't say anything, but continued on her sewing machine. Of course, Adrienne was free to do whatever he wanted. With no more Shadow Moth, there was no need for heroes in Paris, so why wouldn't he want to leave all the painful memories behind and start fresh somewhere else? "Maybe you should go then," she said, trying hard to sound positive. "They are your family after all, and I guess Paris doesn't hold much that's any good for you anymore." "That's not entirely true," he said, his expression more serious. "The company has gone into liquidation, of course, and my aunt is looking over that. The mansion will need to be sold too, and I'm hoping to have that done by the end of lycée. Once that's done, though, most of what reminds me of my father will be gone." He leaned forward, resting his arms on his knees. And there are other reasons for me to want to stay in Paris," he added softly. Marinette still had her back to him and didn't see the longing look in his eyes that she was the reason he wanted to stay. She let out a shaky breath. "If you're worried about Plague, I won't take him from you. I trust you with him, and I doubt he would want to be separated from you." Adrian dropped his head and his heart sank. Maybe he had hoped for too much. "I'm sure Plague will be happy to know that," he said, looking over to the miracle box where Plague had gone to hang out with Tiki and the other Kwamis. He picked up the leftover trays and headed to the trap door. "I'll take these back to the kitchen. Do you want anything?" "No, I'm fine," she said, concentrating back on her sewing machine and not looking at him. She was afraid if she looked at him, she might break down and cry, and she didn't want to do that. She wanted Adrian to make his own choices and not be unduly influenced by her getting emotional. Adrian let out a little disappointed sigh to himself as he descended down the stairs. He had hoped she might have said something, anything that would indicate she wanted him to stay. Maybe he had been wrong, and everything for the last few days had only been an illusion. He was just her partner, her silly kitty, her friend. Perhaps that was going to be the best he could hope for. Walking into the kitchen, Adrian found Sabine warming some milk over a hot stove. She looked up to him with a warm motherly smile. "I was about to bring these up for you both. If you want to wait a minute, you could take them back up with you." Adrian sat down on one of the stools at the counter. He could tell there was an aroma of peppermint coming from the chopped up dark chocolate sitting on the counter. "Why don't you tell me what's troubling you?" Sabine said as she stored the milk. It always surprised Adrian how perceptive Sabine was. Adrian rubbed the back of his neck. "I was just talking to Marinette about what we'll do after school. She's so confident in what she wants, and well, my head and my heart are pulling me in two different directions." Sabine picked up the chopping board with the broken up peppermint chocolate and slid it into the hot milk, stirring it around. "What does your head tell you?" "That I should go and live with my aunt and cousin and go to Cambridge and try to be something successful. I guess that's what's expected of me." Sabine nodded as she listened. "And what does your heart say?" She turned her head to look at him as she continued to stir. "I don't want to leave Marinette." Sabine smiled softly. "Because you love her." Adrian smiled shyly and nodded. "Yes, even if she doesn't love me the same way I love her. I don't think I could be away from her. Her friendship means everything to me, and I just want to be close to her." Sabine set two glasses with handles on the table. "Oh, but she does love you, Adrian, more than I think you realize. She always has." Adrian looked at her with wide eyes. "But she never said anything to me. She always rejected any suggestion of a relationship before, and she must know how I feel about her. She turned down Chat Noir not because she didn't care about you, but because she was already in love with the other half of you, just like you were with Ladybug." Adrian's mouth dropped open. "But when did you?" "We Chang women have our ways." Sabine chuckled and gave him a mysterious look. She had actually known about them for some time, but had kept it to herself. Now, though, she felt it was time. "Do you want to know the secret to the perfect peppermint hot chocolate?" she said as she poured the velvety liquid into the glasses. "It's the quality of the chocolate. Some people use cocoa powder and a few drops of peppermint oil. It's cheap and easy, but there's no depth to the taste." She then got out a tin of whipped cream and swirled it on top. Using good quality chocolate is more expensive and it takes longer to prepare, but the flavor is richer and far more satisfying, especially when you add a few extra touches. It's worth the wait and extra effort. Sabine finished her creations with some red and green festive sprinkles and a small candy cane in each. "Just tell her how you feel. I know it can feel like you're taking a huge risk, but I'm sure you will find it will be worth it." "She's always been worth the risk to me," Adrian said, taking the drinks from Sabine. "Thank you for everything." Sabine reached up and patted him on the cheek. "There is no one else I would rather see our daughter with than the boy who risked his own life to protect hers. It was your love that saved her, Adrian. Let her love save you." End of chapter 7.